Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with Coach Jolie, just the two of us today. And today we are talking about HRT, specifically for women. So we're going to do a two-part series here. We're going to talk about HRT and hormones for women. And then in the next episode, we're going to do one on HRT for men. So if you're a man, maybe skip this episode. I don't know.
Or it could be helpful.
It could be helpful if you're,
your spouse or girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So excited to talk about this. But before we get into today's episode, as always, we like to give a shout out to a member of the week. And we wanted to give a shout out to Miss Christine McConnell this week. She gave out a golden ticket to her husband. She got her husband in here, and she was our very first golden ticket raffle winner. So she won 2 months of stretch therapy, one session every week, which is really exciting.
First session's tomorrow.
And her first stretch session is tomorrow.
Yeah, and just big shout out to her in general, because her and who she brought in, her husband Kirk, they're both working out 5 a.m.
5 a.m.ers.
5 a.m.ers, bright and early.
Yeah.
So.
And how's he doing? I know there's like an adjustment for him. So he's
been enjoying it. I think it's good. It's motivating each other. So they're enjoying it so far.
It's a good way to start the day, get up and get a workout done. And especially when you're together, makes it, really nice. So that's one thing that we've noticed here, guys, is we have a lot of couples and they don't necessarily all work out together. Some of them do, some of them just, come in separately and work out, but they do really, really well. They're some of our most successful. And I think that is because, you have a support system at home, and you're wanting to be healthy together and go and do things. And if one person is, gonna maybe not feeling motivated or something, the other person holds them accountable, and it just works really, really well. So, if you have a spouse, a significant other that's not in here, and you're a member, maybe give them a golden ticket, get them in, and get them rocking and rolling. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So into today's episode, really, guys, what we wanted to do, this is a very, very common thing that we see with our members, is so many of you are doing hormone replacement therapy, which is fantastic. Absolutely pro hormone replacement therapy if you need it, if it's appropriate for you. But I have kind of this major problem with the way that this is done in the industry, just like traditionally. And that is that I feel like it's very guinea pig to some degree and cookie cutter. And so what I mean by that is if you're going to your GYN, and they're prescribing these hormones for you, that's good, because you're going to get checked out regularly, and your GYN is going to be aware of this, and they're going to be able to look for any negative symptoms. However, your hormone replacement therapy that you're doing should be very data driven, based off of your blood work. And I feel like that's not necessarily taken into account enough. I feel like the more common approach is for them to just say okay, here's the standard, and so we're just going to start you with that.
Right. There's no specificity to the person, the individual. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they put somebody on, a whatever the standardized dose is, and then it's okay, cool, see you in 6 months. And then when they come back in and they check and they do your blood work, they may adjust at that point. And so we have a medical team that we're partnered with that does this, but it's hey, we're going to order labs. We're going to look at everything. We're going to get a really detailed view of what your levels are, what you need, and then we're going to retest in 3 months, not 6 months, and we're going to see how everything looks, and then we're going to fine tune it. And then we're going to go another 3 months, and we're going to do it again. And then once we kind of get everything established, then maybe we can start spacing these out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And depending on who you go to, if it's your GYN or if it's an endocrinologist, they might have slightly different approaches, but it also, you have a lot of options when it comes to the, how the hormone replacement therapy is delivered and all of that. So there's a lot to kind of dissect here. We're just going to, try to simplify it a little bit. And at the end of the day, you really kind of have to do your own individual homework before you go to your doctor and know what questions to ask and know what you want to get out of it, right? Yeah. You kind of have to take ownership of your own health because it's your own health. So, sex hormones, right? Sex hormones for women, estradiol, which is a form of like estrogen, and then progesterone. Those are the two like most well known when it comes to women, but also testosterone.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that I want to clarify or bring light to is that women have more testosterone than they do estrogen and progesterone. So women have more estrogen and progesterone than men do, right? More estrogen than men do, and men have a lot more testosterone. Women have more testosterone than any other sex hormone, but they just have less than men, right? So don't think that it's like, I think that's a common misconception is that, you have little testosterone. It's not necessarily the case.
It's like, women need testosterone.
That's too. Still the prevalent hormone in your body. You just also have estrogen and progesterone at a decent level, right? And then there's your luteinizing hormone, your follicle stimulating hormone, which really kind of dictates where a female is at in their cycle. And then obviously like these things start to adjust come menopause.
Yep.
Right? So that changes. Obviously you don't need your cycle goes away. And so it changes how things are done. When you are at the beginning of your cycle on day 0, your progesterone and estrogen should be basically nothing. Yeah. They're net zero essentially. And then as you get into your cycle, we'll start to see estrogen increase. And then at a certain point, progesterone starts to tick up. And then, obviously your ovaries are going, okay, hey, let's, go ahead and put an egg out there, see if we're going to get pregnant or not. And then if there's no baby detected, no pregnancy detected, then you're basically going to shed that lining and then we're going to have a reset.
Yeah, that cycle starts over.
And we're going to start the cycle over again. And so this is also really important because when you get blood work done as a female, depending on where you're at in your cycle, it's going to impact your levels.
Yes.
So unless you are like post menopause, and you no longer have that cycle happening, there's going to be a lot of variation depending on where you're at in the process. And so going like one blood test a lot of times will not determine if there's an issue or not, because what's normal based off of the day and where you're at, it's really hard. So you need a lot more tracking done and testing done to determine if there's any issue. But then once you kind of get to that point where it's like, okay, I'm around menopause, and now all of a sudden things are changing and I don't have my period anymore. It's a lot easier to get that data and see like, okay, where are the levels at? What do we need to do here? So, okay. Little, I guess, brief history of HRT for women. Yeah. It's been going on for about 70 years. And starting off, they were using horse urine to get estrogen, to create estrogen for women. Wow. And they were not aware that they needed to add progesterone. And so early days, you were getting not what is considered bioidentical hormones like you get now. It was horse urine. It was extracted from equestrian. And so what ended up happening is this created it created uterine cancer, and then increase of breast cancer also went up. And it was absolutely like devastating to hormone replacement therapy. And it was like, hey, this isn't something that we should be messing around with. And it really set things back. Yeah. And then in the 90s, they did some testing and they were like, well, we're going to test with the horse urine estrogen because that's what is being used essentially. And then they were like, yeah, this is not recommended. And then in the early 2000s, it was like, oh, hey, bioidentical hormones is actually what we should be using. Plus, if a female has a uterus, we need to be prescribing progesterone with this. So it's different if you've had your uterus removed. If you do have a uterus, progesterone is also advised, right? And there's different forms now of how you can get your hormones, your sex hormones. And with progesterone, that can be an oral form. It can be a topical. And then, you can also get I want to say IUD, but I don't, is that right? Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Okay. IUD,
Yeah.
that releases progesterone.
Right.
The oral has the highest negative side effects of risk. So, a cream, a gel, something like that, or like an IUD is typically a little bit
better,
safer.
Yeah.
And then with estrogen, most of the time, like a topical cream is the best form, safest form, right? Anything you want to add here, Jolie? I know I'm just trying to throw information in here.
It's a lot of information.
It's a lot. I'm sorry. It's very cerebral, but
no, I think it's all important and it's all good information. I think for people to know. I think especially with some of our members here, women here, they'll have questions of, it's hard to tell, right, if it's hormone related when they're experiencing symptoms, and if they want to start to learn more about hormone replacement therapy, or what are some of the things that you would say are when people are coming to you and saying hey, I'm interested in HRT, what are some of the main symptoms that people are experiencing, women especially?
Yeah, you want to run through what women are typically seeing, signs of this, and signs that, hey, it's probably a good idea to go get some blood work done,
right?
See what's going on, talk to your doctor, and then see if this is something that would be, advised or not.
Right, because I think it's something where it's easy to write it off, right? It's there's maybe some brain fog, or there's some it's easy to say I'm not sleeping the best, and we can write it off, right?
Yeah, and it's really important for people to know, but I'll let you go through the symptoms here, but it's really important for people to understand that the closer to menopause you start the hormone replacement therapy, if you do need it, the better the results, right? And so if you are, the further away from menopause you get, the less likely it is to have a positive impact on you with minimal symptoms.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So if you are experiencing these symptoms that Jolie will kind of go through, those are warning signs hey, we probably want to go find out what's going on and get some more information. And I wouldn't shy away from it. We can talk about natural things to do too, but why don't you go ahead and just kind of run through here?
I think some of the physical ones that women experience, right, are perimenopausal, or as they're approaching menopause, right, are things like hot flashes and night sweats, right? Things like brain fog, memory loss. And then I think bone density loss is something where you start to see a small adjustment, or not adjustment, a small dip in that, right?
Yeah.
And then it's okay, that's an indicator, things are starting to shift, things are adjusting. But then the poor sleep, more anxiety, things that are just, again, easy to write off, I think, as just I'm stressed in my everyday life. This could just be something it's just a blip, right? don't ignore those things. Those are
Yeah.
important, right? So mood instability, and then of course, like with your periods, things become more and more irregular too, especially approaching menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vaginal dryness,
Yeah.
right? I know it's like, sorry, said that.
But it's real.
But
Like it happens.
It's real. Like the tissue, there's some atrophy sometimes, in the vaginal area. And so like you can have sexual discomfort, and obviously like drop in libido and all of that as well. So if you're experiencing any of those things, plus weight gain would also be one, when your hormones are changing. Now that's not the cause to weight gain.
Right.
So I want to make sure that's clear. You're not gaining weight because of, the hormonal changes. However, it is absolutely going to amplify poor habits that are, dietary, exercise, the wrong types of exercise, leading up to menopause. And so for really about a decade before perimenopause sets in, what you've been doing from a nutritional standpoint, from a workout standpoint, from a stress standpoint, all of those things are either going to help benefit you when you get to like the perimenopause stage and you're starting to see these hormonal shifts, or it's going to be like a tidal wave that just smashes into you and things are going to start to move backwards. Yeah. So it's not necessarily like the cause of it, but it's definitely exploiting it. And it's saying, hey, you've been doing things wrong. Now it's catching up to you, essentially.
The body remembers.
The body remembers. Well, and you don't get away with those types of things. And
that's
so
what I mean.
A lot of times it doesn't feel urgent to people when they're like, oh, I look fine. I'm not having any issues. But then all of a sudden, 6 years later, it's like, I don't know what's going on. I've never had this weight before. And, I have fat in these different areas that I didn't have it before. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Like if you are experiencing that, hormone replacement can help as well, and a lot of times in those situations, it's not just the estrogen and the progesterone, but testosterone may also be recommended.
Absolutely.
So let's see. What else, Jolie? Any other side effects that somebody should be aware of?
I think too with testosterone, one of the like slower recovery from exercise, right? Because like it's testosterone for women, you can kind of think of it as like a motivating type of a hormone for women. Yeah. And so like when you're working out and your strength training and maybe you're noticing that soreness is just lasting days and days in between your workouts and things like that. So a slower muscle recovery. Just that motivation, just muscles feeling like an overall sense of weakness, maybe fatigue. Poor
energy levels. Yeah. One thing that I forgot to mention about your sex hormones, they are created from cholesterol. So pretty much every hormone in your body comes from cholesterol, except vitamin D, which comes from the sun, right? And so if you eat a low-fat diet, if you are one of those people that's like, oh, I just can't have any fat in my diet whatsoever, you are in for a lot of trouble when you get to this point. I mean, at any point in your life, but especially around menopause, you absolutely need to be consuming healthy fats to provide your body with ample precursors to the hormones, meaning that your body's going to take that cholesterol, break it down and turn it into your sex hormones. And your cortisol levels and your sex hormones have an inverse relationship because they both come from from cholesterol and DHEA. So if you are very stressed, your body will produce more cortisol and it will not produce as much of your sex hormones. If you have if you're not requiring so much on the cortisol side, then your body will be like, hey, everything's cool. Let's go ahead and push this over and create sex hormones from this. So the stress management piece of it is also really important.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, guys, I will always, hormone replacement therapy is definitely necessary in a lot of situations, and advised. And at this point, we've got it pretty, figured out, medical, community, in terms of not necessarily the dosage and all of that. I think there's definitely some room for improvement there in how it's prescribed and monitored. But in terms of us using bioidentical hormones and like what you should use and the combinations and all that, like we've got that pretty, science has that pretty, figured out. But we always are like nature first. So what are some like natural things that people can do in order to support healthy hormones before we would be like, okay, this is a dire situation, we have to have the medication,
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you got?
What are some natural ways?
Get 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
If you're not sleeping, and this can be a situation where it's like sometimes you need the progesterone to help you sleep. So
Right.
if you're not, then it's like, okay, well, that's going to help with that. But you definitely need to be getting sleep, a good quality sleep for healthy hormones. Strength training. You have to be strength training for your bone health, for your testosterone health. And, cardio is important, but you can overdo it pretty easily with the cardio.
Yeah.
If strength training is a must. 3 days a week, that's a must. If you can get, a day or two of zone 2 cardio mixed in there, really helpful. But you can't just go all cardio, and that's not going to help you with the fat loss, which is the reason why most people do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. And then stress management. Always taking care of your nervous system, making obviously, like, we live in everybody's got some forms of stress in their lives in one way, shape, or form, but it's being able to, okay, like, what are we doing to kind of monitor your stress levels in a way where you're like not just constantly in a state of just feeling frenetic and overwhelmed and, all that stuff, just taking care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And traumatic experiences in somebody's life, especially like, leading up to prior to menopause, can wreak havoc as well. So if you have been through something that is like, traumatic, a loss of a loved one or something like that, therapy, like seriously, because you're going to be depleted, and it's going to be, really challenging, more challenging from a physical standpoint when you do hit this period. From a nutritional standpoint, like we already mentioned the fats, but you also need to have robust protein in your diet. Yeah. Protein is not going to make you fat. Someday everybody's going to wise up and go, hey, protein is actually kind of like net zero calories, because your body's going to take those amino acids, break them down, utilize them, and then whatever you don't need, you're just going to pee out, essentially. That's how protein works.
It doesn't go to waste in the body.
It doesn't go to waste.
It won't make you fat.
Yeah, it's not going to make you fat. And if you eat protein and then you gain like 2 pounds, that's probably muscle mass.
Which we want.
Mom. Anyway. So, you gotta make sure you're having a minimum of your body weight in grams of protein. And then supplements. Talk about some supplements that help. So sunlight is really, really important. Most people do not get enough sunlight just based off of, our lives are kind of inside. Most people work inside. So you should be supplementing with a vitamin D /K2. K2 helps you absorb the vitamin D. Magnesium, super helpful. Omega-3s, again, they're your fats. For women, I recommend that, actually for everybody, but women, I recommend that you take branched chain amino acids. Collagen, your collagen protein is probably a waste of money and time. I wouldn't even bother with that. You'd be better off just going with a regular protein.
I agree.
Go away.
I agree.
Boron is really important supplement that you can take. DHEA, if it's low, then you can supplement with that as well. And then Tongat Alai is a herb that you can take that can also help support healthy testosterone levels. So, guys, there are risks to HRT, right? So it's really important if you are going to, if you're going to do this, that you get the proper blood work done. There's risk of blood clots. There can be risk of certain types of cancers. And so you want to talk to your doctor. You want to get the baseline labs. You want to retest regularly. And you definitely want to choose the safest form for you. Usually that's in a topical. I'm not a big fan of the pellets. I will say that for testosterone, because it jacks you up at the beginning, and then you go through these like vicious mood swings where as the testosterone depletes, you start to feel really bad. And then it's like, oh, I guess it's time for my testosterone. And then you get all ramped up again, and then it starts to deplete again. And it's just a vicious cycle. Like there's a much better way now, so I'm not a fan of that. If your doctor recommends that, I would get a second opinion, so, what else? Anything else?
I feel like we covered.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't plan to go this long, but there's a lot to this, and I have pages of notes here. So, guys, you deserve to feel amazing, right? And so if you don't feel amazing and you're struggling, there's no reason not to get some support, but you just have to go about it the right way, and we do have a team that we trust. They're phenomenal. They're very thorough. They do all the testing and everything. And they use data, and they will also take a, more natural approach at the beginning, and they'll, kind of do like the minimal viable doses to get you to where you need to be, and feeling optimal. And that's another thing to consider is like the norms for ranges now on your blood work. The norms are taken from a population that is decreasing in health. So our normal society's health has been on the decline for years and years now. And so what's normal is not what's optimal. And you want a doctor that is going to look at your blood panel and go, okay, what would be optimal for you, and how do we get you there? What is the approach? Yeah. So, you want to go, if possible, and you have the means to do it, like more of a concierge approach to this versus like, again, kind of your GYN or endocrinologist that's just going to say like, oh, here's the standardized, that we start with for everybody. And then they're not basing it off of your levels or anything. Yeah. So be cautious. But this can really help with, you just feeling great and aging really well. And, there are risks, but the benefits most of the time well outweigh the risks of hormone replacement therapy. So, all right, guys, that's all we got. We'll be back next week with more great stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale Podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.